It turns out I was wrong, and we need to cover this today. Something very interesting happened just yesterday with the live weekly events, and it all surrounds this specific car, the 911. Now, of course, this was the compensation that we obviously had with the buying the gold pack, the gold edition of the game. And it's a car for me I've largely unused, maybe used it a few times over on the Ibiza map. But with the release of the Celine edition cars, that A110 was just OP for me. And it took me away from the 911. But something, like I mentioned, interesting happened yesterday, and we've seen this thing topping out the leaderboards, and I have to come over and test it out. So we're going to do that first of all with a very nice entry into today's race. We're coming back over to the Long Snake, the one we kind of covered off. Max RP is 600 in the max production year of 2000. And of course, I instantly went towards the Lancia Delta Integrale, had a look through the garage and remembered that A110. But when we come over to that leaderboard, well, we can see it's absolutely dominated by the Lancia Delta Integrale and the 911 Carrera Coupe Adventure. With the time I set of 4 minute flat in the Alpine A110, still sitting actually the fastest Alpine time, we can see that the 911 Carrera Coupe Adventure is OP, and some astonishing times on the board. 3 minutes 37, 3 minutes 39, 3 minutes 51, 10, 20 seconds faster than the A110 time that I set just yesterday of 4 minutes flat. 0.79. What's 0.79 amongst friends here? So let's jump into it, to the Rat Edition 911 Adventure Coupe that I have kind of built there in the more modern GT3 RS colours. Played about with that one, guys, but we want to test out that theory. Now, for me, I've always felt this car was slower than the A110. Yes, it still sounds pretty cool, but the A110 sounds like a rally car. It's nostalgic and it's what I loved. But we're going to test out the theory, guys. We're going to see just how much quicker we can be in the 911 Coupe. In through the initial snaking section here, we can see it's actually a little bit more manageable than the A110. The A110 was a hell of a lot more leery than what this one really is. So already it does actually feel like we're a little bit quicker through the initial first sector, let's call it, of this race, downhill through the snaking section. But as speed starts to pick up here, at this point I feel like the 911 is slightly slower than what the Alpine was. In through the big lefts, the big rights, through the little undulations and the crest that we have on this one, it's going to be interesting to see how much more balance we have in this over the A110. Now, towards the end of today's video, I will share the tune I've built for this, but what I've kind of also done here is made the similar mistakes as I did in yesterday's video. With these sections in particular, you know, outbraking yourselves, coming over those crests like I mentioned a little earlier, and clipping the walls that I did clip. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, with the same similar race, if you go back and watch yesterday's video, I'm going to link it just up here for you to actually check out after today's video. We do make the same mistakes, so it's going to be a fantastic comparison, but something happens at the end of this race and I had to leave it in because I can now work out why these guys are so much quicker across that leaderboard. And if I could replicate it in the A110, it would make for a fantastic video. I tried, I failed. It's going to have to be a one-shot shootout in the 911. But we're already 42% away through this race, and it feels like a very similar time that we've already laid down here in the 911 compared to the A110. Big flash sections right there. We actually missed that lamppost that we did take out yesterday. Unfortunately, we know we like to take out a lamppost here on the videos, but we've missed it this time out as we do come back uphill through the sweeping lefts, the sweeping rights. We're carrying a ton of speed through these ones in the 911, so like I mentioned, it does actually feel more balanced for these off-road races. Very compatible builds that I've done between the A110 and the 911 here. But it feels like this wants to absorb those bounces, the corners, the bumps, the lumps a hell of a lot more than what the A110 does. So when it comes to getting the power back down here, coming out of the corners, well, the Porsche actually does feel better. Coming across the road section there, again, I feel like that was where the A110 maybe picked up more speed. You could you know, maybe carry on a big power slide coming up the left-hander uphill over the road, and then in through this section making a couple of comparable mistakes that I did make yesterday. So it's going to be super interesting to see where these times do compare, where they do stack up against one another. Coming around the right-hander there, we can see we do have to drop down the gears in the 911. For me, it doesn't have the same amount of power and acceleration as that A110 does, as it screams through the gears. The 911's more conservative, it's more polite as it screams up through the motions here. But as we come over to the last sector, I see this as the last sector. It's fast, it's off-roading, it's left, it's right, it's over those bumps, those jumps, those blind crests that we've got here, and I feel like we've managed it a lot better this time out in the 911, so I do truly feel that this thing is more balanced for this long snake race. But as things start to get a bit heated up, a bit leery, we start to get very confident, maybe too confident in the 911. And that's where this happens. We end up off-road, and I think this is what everybody is doing. Cutting out that last corner, heading straight for the last checkpoint, turning left down to the start-finish line. And when we take a look at the time that we managed to achieve, well, we end up 6th on the leaderboard with a 3-minute 53, just 2 seconds off of a podium position. Now I have to beg the question here, is everybody cutting that last corner? How much quicker would we have been? Previously we were down there in 17th place with a 4-minute .79, I believe it was. Might be wrong, might be 2.9, whatever it was. 4-minute flat. We've managed to cut off almost 7 seconds of that lap time. And is it all by cutting that last corner? Could we have replicated that with the Alpine A110? Could we have got ourselves up into a podium position? It's another shortcut, guys. Didn't cover it off in yesterday's video. Of course, yesterday's video we did cover off another shortcut for one of those races. Be sure to check it out after today's one. But I think there's the potential there to catch up with those leaderboards. But it still brings into question that 3-minute 39 and 3-minute 37. What other shortcut is there on this race that we're missing out? There has to be something. I don't personally see another 10-15 seconds in that lap time. Maybe 10 seconds. There were mistakes made. It's going to be interesting. Let me know if you guys have already seen the shortcut, if you've already taken it, if you've already got that competitive lap time on the board or not. Like I did mention earlier though, we did put a build together for this one. I'm going to share it all with you now because you guys tend to like having those builds shared. I'm not going to list everything off. You can come back, you can pause the video, rewind it to get all of the settings here. You can see I've built this heavily focused aggressively towards an acceleration heavy 911 there, with those ratios very linear. Suspension as big as we can. Fairly soft when we look at the springs and the compression there. A little bit of rebound, it's kind of how I like to build the off-road cars. Get this thing back as stable as we possibly can. Again, you can pause it here and take those settings so you can try the 911 out with the build that I've put together right there. Over to handling, largely untouched. The one thing I do here though is change that power to weight distribution down to around about 59%, get some more traction through the front of the car. Then as we come to the bottom, softening the front anti-roll bar to 11%, a little bit of negative camber, obviously more to the front to help it turn in and out of those corners a little bit easier. I think it did benefit the 911, kind of highlighted in the race there. Then of course the standard brake settings, 75% front to rear and 450% for the brake pressure. For me, felt like to be a very good build there on the 911 Adventure Edition. Guys, let me know what you thought of this one. Have you already found that shortcut towards the end of the race? Have you been using the 911? Did you even get the 911 in the compensation pack? Let me know everything in the comment section down below before you leave today. As always guys, please do like, subscribe, tap on the bell and leave a comment in the video. All of those helps grow the channel and helps feed the YouTube algorithm to get the video out to as many people as possible. I do see in the comment section there's a lot of new people. Thank you guys for joining, thank you for commenting, please continue to do so. I thoroughly appreciate it. Stay tuned for more updates on Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown.